What's up, guys? It's November. We got some new stuff that's coming on. So go below and check out the new channel, Hustlers Kung Fu. We're getting ready to do something, and there's something that I am going to do. I don't really know what it's called, but it's going to be like a mentorship where I'm going to be individually talking to people, helping people get to the next level. Once I get it all worked out, I'll announce that. Because it's going to be a mentorship, I can only work with so many people at one time. So be sure to check the link out. And there may be an email list. I got to think about that. There may be an email list for the people who want the mentorship on that I'm working on them. At the moment, I'm working on it. So one of the things that's coming. So be sure to check out the rebirth of Hustlers Kung Fu. Go to that channel and let's get into this video. Living paycheck to paycheck. I gotta go way back to actually know what that's like. Because long time ago, and this is one of the things that's interesting. I've entered a period where I've been an entrepreneur longer than I had a job. So I've been working for myself longer than I've worked for anyone else. So this is different mindset. It's a totally different mindset. So I gotta go way back to when I had a job and when I was living paycheck to paycheck. And one of the big issues was, even though I was working in the medical field, life was expensive back then. And I gotta really think about this because, like most of you, I didn't have any financial training growing up. There was a home ec class that I didn't take where they covered setting up your checking account and stuff like that. But I remember working, doing the things that I needed to do to work, to make money. And there was no alternative deviations for me to pursue. There was nothing. You know, I was just out there just working. And one of the things that I hit upon when I was in the military, and one of the things that was really interesting, I was pretty smart when I was in the military because I was stationed in various places, and I got here to Atlanta at Fort McPherson, and I realized I needed to make more money. And I'm gonna tell you what made me realize that. There was a girl, we lived in the barracks, and on the ground floor was the girls, this, cause it was like, the barracks was like this. You had doors here, you go down this hall, you go upstairs, so it was another hall, there was another hall and another hall, and the girls were down there. And there was one of the girls was going on a date, and she had allowed this guy to come on post, and this guy had a brand new BMW M3, and it was beautiful red, very nice car. And I was like, and I went out there and I was looking at it, and I was just walking around it, and he came out, and I was like, yeah, I just got it. I said, this is a really nice car. And you know, he's like, yeah. And he was just talking about that he owned a business. And I was like, oh. And this is where this whole passion for me to own a business really started. It started with that whole process because before I got my car, I was in the military, I used to have money all the time. I had money all of the time. Then I got that car, and my car payment was $289. I know a lot of y'all wish your car payment was that cheap right now. I know, but my car insurance was $250. So between my car payment and my car insurance, that took a complete check. And that's when I started to feel the stress of not having enough money. And once again, that concept wasn't even defined in my mind back then. It wasn't even defined as not having enough money. It was just like, I need to get some money so I can get this. I was in a very different state of mind, very different thought process, a very different, just different person. And one of the things that happened as I was going through this process was I started to want more in life. And once again, this is very much still in the paycheck to paycheck thing, because here's the thing. I didn't know what I didn't know, if that makes sense. I didn't really know what I didn't know. And I was just out there. I was a young man in the military, just trying to figure out a way to make more money. Because my car, which was a Nissan Stanza, and I'll even tell you the story how I got that. First Sergeant Branch, when I was in basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, he was selling us these bonds. He was like, get these government bonds. So I just signed up for $100 bond, which meant that you bought it for $50, and when it matured, you could cash it in for $100. I forget the terms and stuff, but I was religiously buying these bonds, and my financial setup was just kind of crazy because I would buy the bonds and I would send them home. And I was in Hawaii. Then I just went on this trip where my mother needed a car, and I went to the Nissan dealership. And well, first thing I did is I knew I would need some money, so I had all these government bonds because I would buy a bond every month. And I think I had like 36 or 40 of them. I had a bunch of them. And I just went in and cashed them in, and that gave me close to $3,000 to buy this car. And I went in and I had no credit, nothing, but I had cash. I was in the military, and they worked out a deal where I was able to buy that car without the assistance of a co-borrower. There was no one that had to sign for me to drive that car off. And this is what's kind of funny about this situation. I got a 5-speed. And at the time I got this car, I barely knew how to drive a 5-speed. I had a friend in Hawaii that was teaching me how to drive a 5-speed. So I knew enough to get the car in gear. I knew enough to get the car at home, but hills were really, really scary. Hills were really, really scary. But I would manage to buy this car. And once again, when I was in the military, I had a lot of good sense. I had a lot of common sense, because little did I know that buying those government bonds would set up my future. I had no clue, because once again, no one really told me anything about money. And I got to Fort McPherson, and this is when I became very, very aware of money. Not income, not deficits, I wasn't even in that space back then. And this is one of the things that set me on this path to create all of these businesses, right? And it was failure after failure after failure after failure after failure. And even when I ETS'd, I was still trying to do it. I went and got a pickup truck, and I went to Home Depot and I bought a lawnmower, and I went to Buckhead, and this is how crude I was. I would literally write my name and number on a sheet of paper and stuff it in people's mailboxes, which was at the time highly illegal. It didn't work. And the people that I bought the truck from, because what I did is I traded in my car to get the truck. and the truck was a 5-speed, and it was just like that was a way for me. I was ETS. I had like 3 months of terminal leave, so I had money coming in, and I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then the people that I bought the truck from actually said, hey, we can't finance this deal. You need to bring the truck back. I had the truck for 2 weeks, so it was kind of funny. And they had my car, and I went back, took the truck back, and gave them the truck and the keys, and then they gave me my car back, and I parted ways. And then next day, I went to Northside Hospital and filled out an application. In 2 weeks, I had a job. So that would begin the paycheck to paycheck cycle. Because as I think back, like I said, I know a lot about money. I really had no good money concepts or stuff. I remember my first 2 credit cards, maxed them out 2 months. And then I had this car payment, at those 2 credit cards, and that was it. But between the car payment, which took 1 check, and then the credit cards took, not like, I have really low credit limits. I think they gave me credit limits like $1,500 on each card. So my minimum payment wasn't that much. I had the 2 credit cards, and I went to Riches. Let me go ahead and tell you the story about Riches, which no longer exists. I think Macy's bought Riches. That Riches credit card was something special. Because I was at Fort McPherson and used to go to Greenbrier Mall. In the back end of Greenbrier Mall was this Riches. And Riches credit cards were like really, because like they would do certain things. They would give you additional categories. Like if you wanted to buy furniture, because that's how I got my furniture. I went to Riches and I was like looking at furniture, and I say, hey, I bought a living room set, I bought a dining room set, I bought a bedroom set, all on Riches credit card, because there's like, well, you've been with Riches for a while, let's see what we do. And they gave me a special extension on that Riches credit card to buy all that furniture. And then if you want to buy watches and jewelry, they would give you like another extension. That Riches credit card, I think maxed out was like $15,000. And they would just keep giving you credit, and as long as you made the payment, they would keep giving you credit and credit and credit and stuff. And between the car payment, the car insurance, the 2 credit cards, which were maxed out, and the Riches credit card, I would go to work, and after paying those bills, paying rent, I was living paycheck to paycheck. And this is a learned behavior. Because I just sit back and look. And there was a guy, we used to call his name Fook. Fook was excellent with money. Fook had like $50,000 in the bank when he got out the military, and then he went into IT. But Fook was really, he paid cash for his car and everything. And I used to talk to Fook, and one of the things that happens is no one talks to us about money. No one really talks to us about money. And then we kind of go out here and start living life. And this is why I say it's a learned behavior, because we're just kind of learning as we go. And the next thing you know, you're living paycheck to paycheck. It's like it takes all the money that you make for you to pay your bills. And it creates this situation. And this is one of the reasons that as I have come along, as I have learned that money management is a key principle to get yourself situated where you're not living paycheck to paycheck. And, I had to really, really go way, way back in time and think about it, because it was disgusting. The way that I was living back then, it was disgusting. I look at it now, I was just like that. It was just terrible, very, very terrible financial habits. I would go to pawn shops. I would pawn my, back then you could pawn CDs and DVDs, which, are those still a thing? I think there are people who collect them, but I got so bad because, once again, I did not understand credit when I had credit. I didn't understand none of the stuff that I learned. And one of the things that happened is I went to Aaron's Rent to Own to get a washer and dryer because I didn't understand credit. And this just loaded up my whole paycheck with these bills. And I felt really, really hard. I ended up with bad credit. I ended up with, actually, I got sued. I got sued by some of my creditors. And then I went to court and I read some stuff online and I told the judge this, and the judge was like, that's true. And he denied the creditor from actually coming for me. They would have to do the whole thing over again, and they never did that. And then I fell into being homeless because I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had no savings account. I had no money. And that's how I ended up in that boarding house. And I was pissed off. I was really, really pissed off. But I was pissed off at the world. I should have been pissed off at me. I should have been pissed off at myself because I was the architect of my demise. And about 2 years, I was just disgustingly mad, working these crazy jobs, doing all this kind of stuff. There was a place called Labor Ready, and I forget the name of it, but one was in College Park, and I lived in the boarding house, so I could walk to the MARTA station, take MARTA, go to College Park. And the other one was in East Point. It was a little bit more difficult to get to, but I would just walk because I didn't have a car. And I was doing this kind of stuff. Then one day, I was in the bathroom and I had what you would consider an epiphany. I had that moment of clarity. You can call it. I was real clear with myself, and I was like, the reason you're in this boarding house is you just don't have no money because you didn't put any money away. This is the beginning of my financial journey. I went out, got a part-time job, and I saved every penny of that part-time job into my first emergency fund. First emergency fund I've ever had in life. And it was about $200 every 2 weeks. And I had that emergency fund for about a year. And close to $5,000. And then I lost my job and I had to use that money. Now back then I was super cheap. I was super cheap because I had no money. And I spent maybe $2,000 during those 6 weeks that I was unemployed. Because once again, I was unemployed, I had bad credit, so my bills were quite minimum. I had rent, food, that was pretty much my bills, rent, food, and was still going through the divorce, so child support did not kick in at that moment. Having that job, and this is where the do more principle comes in. This is why I tell you guys to do more. And every other weekend I was working And then I got laid off. Well, fired, laid off, whatever you want to call it. I didn't have a job. And that money provided me a cushion to live on. And one of the things is, because I didn't have a lot of bills, I wasn't spending money like crazy. I wasn't just out just spending money. I really was just paying the necessary bills. And then I got the job at Rent-A-Crate. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that day. I got a call from Shanley, and he asked me, did I get an offer letter? And I said, no. Next day, overnight, UPS, I get an offer letter, $38,500. The most money I've ever made in my life. I was like, oh man. So I instantly began to put maybe 20%, because once again, you got to understand, I didn't have a lot of bills. Because I was coming out of that paycheck to paycheck mindset. I was doing something very, very different. And I think I started putting like 20%, because that $38,000 was like, I'm gonna say close to 3 times what I was making doing all the other stuff. So it was easy to save money when you had money. It was way easier because I had money. I was in a situation where I could save money. And I will never forget that first savings account and how it saved me, and it prevented me from being homeless again. It prevented me from doing stupid, dumb stuff again. And then I just kept saving money and just kept saving money. And then I went from Rent-A-Crate to panel systems to business environments. And this is one of the things, when I got to business environments, I had about $60,000 in the bank. So I was able to take a 100% commission job where they gave me money for 3 months. They paid me for 3 months. And then I think I spent $15,000 out that 60 to live before my first deals started coming in. And then I'll just never forget the power of having a savings account, the ability to have money set aside. Because when I was in the military and when working in Northside, that's when I was living paycheck to paycheck. And then that final year in the boarding house, I stopped living paycheck to paycheck. And I have not lived paycheck to paycheck ever since. And then when I got into my own business, I had the money that I made from GC Solutions, which was huge. And then that money helped me start the new office furniture version of GC Solutions. And then I got in the storage auction business. And at one point in the storage auction business, I was saving 50% of my income. But it was easy to do when you're getting $20,000 a month. It was easy to do because, once again, you got to go way back in time. Things were nowhere near as expensive as they are today. It's just not even close to being as expensive. So it was pretty easy. It was very, very easy to live on $10,000 a month. And as I went through this whole pathway, because, when I put things in these videos, you guys don't know the whole story. And this is why I'm going to start telling the whole story, because a lot of my money management has come from practical experience. Being in the position where I didn't have no money, being in a position where not having money led to me being homeless. That's really, really bad. That's really, really bad. And one of the things that has occurred is that, this was like 24 years ago, 25 years ago. But I still remember the pain of it, because you become very, very different. You become very, very standoffish, very much to yourself. But that's what happened to me, because I had needs and things where I had to stop living paycheck to paycheck. And this is one of the things that has occurred to me, is that many people who are looking for fast, quick, expedient solutions really don't have any reasoning and understanding of what the whole process of building a financial system that allows you to live outside of paycheck to paycheck. I really don't think a lot of you guys get that, because you haven't had those experiences of not having money and going through a very brutal, harsh reality of being homeless. And one of the things that happens with this thing, because this is one of the things that comes out with my training, it comes from practical experience. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. And one of the things that I looked at, and I have a deep understanding, is that when you give people money that they didn't earn, typically it's going to be wasted. Typically, more often than not. So right now we have a lot of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of folks living paycheck to paycheck, struggling, and it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse, because I'm just looking at what's happening with the economy. And as we're rolling down, the fact that all of these car dealerships are overflowing with cars, and there's a United Auto Workers strike. They're not making cars, and these dealers are still flooded with cars. That's highly problematic. That tells you a lot what's going to happen, what's going on with all of these things that are in the economy, these things that are happening that are putting people in very interesting positions. Because I was at the bank today, and there was a guy who's like, he's closing on the house. And I looked at this guy who looks like an average dude. He got into a very old used car, old car. I don't know if it was used. He could have bought it new. But this guy's got a closing next week, which means he's buying properties. And one of the things that I have seen is you need to be at $120,000 plus to be in a position to buy a house today. That's kind of, that's where you need to be. And part of this whole situation is setting yourself up where you can be very, very different from your peers. And this is some of the stuff that's going to do, because this weekend I'm going to work on the mentorship, I'm going to work on the training, and I'm going to be putting that out. So be on the lookout for that, because it's coming, because people need help.